Okay, so today our class is going to be about the residential listing agreement and the estimated seller's proceeds. I know a lot of times when agents get a call from a seller, their biggest concern is, how much money are we going to make? What does it look like for us? So this class will also include that. And also right now, due to COVID, I will also go over the listing agreement coronavirus addendum and amendment that you should be signing during your listing, your listing appointment as well. So for those of you who have not set up templates are huge. So again, that's going to be a different class. So that way you can get those templates uploaded. And I'm just going to go back really quick and just show you what I did. And basically all I did was go to new. So a buyer or a seller calls you and is interested in listing their home. You go to new transaction in your car forms, select new listing, and then put in the property address. So for today, we're just going to put 123 Test Street. And we'll just put it Test Street residential, and we'll select the template. This is what I mean by having templates. So I have a standard listing template. So we're going to go ahead and do the standard listing template. And we're going to select save. And here we're going to go to our documents. And because I have templates and folders, makes it so much easier for the transactions. And again, if you don't have it, that's okay. We can get you there. But for now, for today's class, what I do is I'm going to go into my sign at listing appointment folder, because this is what matters during my listing appointment. So this is the initial step once I am meeting with a seller. So the first thing I do is here is the residential listing agreement. This is what it looks like. And I know we went over the RPA, which is the purchase agreement. This is always the first form you will always sign as an agent. Your disclosure regarding agency relationship. This must be the first form you always sign, because it lets the seller or buyer know, depending upon who you're representing, what your duties are to them. So this is the first form that should always be signed, so they know what your responsibilities are. Second page is how it's written in the civil code, because obviously if you look up here, it's very summarized of what our duties are. And on page 2, it is how it's written in the civil code. So if they want to take time to read that, they can. And it's followed by the Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory. This is actually a new form that came into effect last year. And this is just obviously letting everyone know that we cannot discriminate. And it just goes into very detailed information as to all the different federal housing acts, California Fair Employment Act, California Unrest Civil Rights Act, Americans with Disabilities Act. There's so many different acts. So that's why when you also place your listing for sale, you are not supposed to say perfect for first-time home buyers, good for, retirement people. They feel that you are discriminating against others. So, just definitely something, smaller, cute home, looking to downsize, if you're in a bigger home or, whatever, but you have to be very careful when you do that. So make sure you're not breaking any of those laws. And this just goes into that information. And your seller does have to acknowledge that there is a list available if they want to go to get more information about fair housing resources, if they feel they've been discriminated. So the next form is possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. And this is a consent form you need by your seller. And the reason why is because a lot of buyers or sellers, let's say once you've put a home for sale, sometimes a neighbor will call you and say, hey, I'm interested in you selling my home. Well, if you haven't discussed that with your seller, where there might be multiple sellers in the area that you might be, choosing to work with, that's why this form came about. Every time there is any type of disclosure, it's because there was a lawsuit. So just pay attention to that and be mindful that you definitely need to let the sellers know that there's a possibility you could be selling homes that are very similar to theirs in the same area. And you might also have buyers that you're working with in that area. And it's a possibility of a dual agency if you do dual agencies. And then offers not necessarily confidential. So you need to explain to them, what it is exactly so they understand. Wire fraud and electronic funds transfer advisory. So this right here is another important form. Again, wire fraud is huge. So it's super important that you yourself never give wire instructions to a buyer. You always instruct them to call escrow, their property manager, whoever it is that they're wiring money to, they need to speak to that person directly. So you're never involved with any numbers, and that way they can't ever say anything to you. So always make sure that they are well aware that they need to call escrow to get wire instructions directly from their escrow officer. Okay. Now getting into the residential listing agreement. Now we know that we have now a coming soon, which is pretty popular. So date prepared is not the date that's going to be active. It's going to be the date that you are obviously preparing the document. So we are going to put today's date since we're preparing it today. So I choose the residential listing agreement, exclusive authorization and right to sell. There's many different listing agreements, but this is the agreement that protects you to earn your commission. And if the seller defaults, you're still protected by that. So this is why I choose to use this one. Exclusive right to sell. Who's the seller? So we're going to put Mr. Seller here. And we are going to put Mr. Seller and then beginning date. So what's the date that they want to begin the listing? Now, keep in mind, you might want to, have photos taken, there might be things that you need to do. Maybe you want to stage it. Maybe, there's, they want to paint a room or what have you. So you can just, let's say, it's not going to go live until Monday the 5th. Then you can click on there, Monday the 5th. Hold on real quick. You have to. Just making sure. Okay. And then your ending date, it's up to you. Everyone does contracts differently. Myself personally, I do 6 months for a standard listing. That's usually what I do. And I tell them, of course, it's not going to take me 6 months, but I do lock in a 6-month contract. And also, obviously, we know it can sell in a week, if we really wanted it to. But if it's a short sale, then I'll do it for a year. So just so you know, just to give me more time. We know banks take longer, although it doesn't take a year. But again, you want to make sure your time and efforts are definitely accounted for. So you never know what you're up against when you're doing that. So on a standard sale, I'll always do the 6 months. Okay, so I'll go here. So, and I always end mine at the end of the month, no matter what date. If I take it April 1st, it's going to be it's going to actually be 7 months because I end it at the end of every month. It just makes it easier for me to keep track of contracts. So we'll say April. So May, June, July, August, September, October. So we'll go to October and it'll be the 31st. So the last day of every month is when, my contracts expire. And here it's going to say, real property described as. So you're going to put in the street name. So 1, 2, 3. My mouse is frozen. Why? Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3. Well, hold on really quick. Hi, Josie. Yes, you can do more than 6 months on a standard sale. You can do as long as you want, but most sellers are going to ask you, why is it so long? Most sellers want three months or less. So you got to sell them on that 6 months. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I don't know why. Let me get Jessica to look at my screen, because just the fact that she looks at it, she fixes it. So give me a second.
Yes.
It's frozen. Oh, there we see what I tell you. But wait a minute, it's still frozen. It's like, I don't know why. Is it the internet or what's going on here? Sorry, guys. I don't know why it's got frozen for a minute. Let me go back here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. Test street, any city, California, 91762. Okay, so there you have it. Situated in, and then you can put it again right here, any city, I guess. It usually auto-populates when you have a real address, so you probably wouldn't even have to worry about doing this. But for sample sake, we're going to do it. Okay, so, and then always remember that parcel number. Otherwise, it's going to get kicked back from compliance. So parcel number is huge. So get that off of your, your prelim or your realist tax. So we'll just make up a number for now. And that's our parcel number. And then here is your listing price and terms. So whatever price that you agreed upon. So we agreed at $450. And here you're going to come down to, is there any other terms that you need to be aware of? And that would be if it's a contingent sale, if something needs to happen for this to happen. So that's where you would put in anything other. So contingent, and then obviously you're going to attach the contingency form too, but you can put contingent upon seller, finding a replacement property. Because they're going to want to see that. If it's contingent, they're going to ask you, where is it in the contract? So you want to make sure that it's in there if something has to happen. So then we go down to compensation, and then seller agrees to pay the compensation. So here, where this percentage is, this is the total percent. So if it's not what they're paying you, and then down here goes what they're paying someone else. This is the total percent. So if you're charging a total of 5%, then you would put 5 here. And then some of you charge admin fees or transaction fees or other fees. So if you do that, you're going to put it right here under and. And. Okay, so and then you can put, let's just say $650 admin fee. So they know there's a $650 admin fee. If you didn't want to do the percentage and you want to do a flat fee, then you would check this box X here and then put the flat fee there. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Getting down to number 2, if within, you can put as many calendar days or leave it blank, put NA, it's up to you. I always put 180 calendar days after the end of a listing period or any extension. After any cancellation of this agreement, unless otherwise agreed, seller enters into a contract to sell, convey, lease, or otherwise transfer the property to anyone, prospective buyer, or that person's related entity who physically entered and was shown the property during the listing period or any extension by the broker or cooperating broker for whom broker or any cooperating broker submit. Okay, so basically what this means is if within 180 days from when you canceled or your contract was no longer valid, let's say a buyer walked in or called you and you showed that property, and they within 180 days go back directly to that seller or to the new listing agent if they hired someone else, you can be entitled to the compensation for procuring that buyer. So and them selling to someone that they should have sold to back then. But there is a catch. You have to make sure that you send over in writing. Okay, so you have to send over in writing. Right here says, watch, and let me see if they changed the date. The list of buyers who might possibly buy. So like, let's just say, for instance, you were working with Kelly Smith and Brenda Jones, and they were both very interested in the property, or they maybe at that point didn't qualify, but you showed them the house and you told the seller, you know what, if you give them X amount of time, they're ready to buy, and it was still within your time, and you got, you canceled your contract, they still, if they go back after, because let's just say now it's listed by a totally different listing agent, now, you still can be entitled to that compensation. So just so you know, and I'm looking on here because I know there was a time frame. It's not very long. You have to give your seller the names of those people. That is your duty. Broker has given seller written notice of names. Okay, so right here, not later than the end of the listing period or any extension, broker has given seller a written notice of names of such prospective buyers. So if you know your listing is going to expire, then you need to send your seller a list. Like if any of these people decide to buy within the next 180 days, I would be entitled to my commission. So just so you guys know that, protect yourselves always. And that's why you got to keep track of what you're doing, who you're showing, and everything else. Okay, so, and then here it says, in addition, seller agrees to pay broker. So this is if there's anything else that they plan to pay you, you're going to put that on there. Hold on real quick. Let's see. And then if you notice, I put NA in everything that doesn't apply because a lot of people aren't comfortable with signing stuff that's empty. So just make sure you're mindful of that and don't leave things, blank. So this one here says seller has been advised of broker's policy regarding cooperation with and the amount of compensation offered to other brokers. So this is the amount that you're offering to the other brokers in the MLS. So this is what's going to be displayed as their compensation. So here is where you're going to decide if I'm going to split it 50-50. So it would be 2.5, or some agents would put 2. So whatever you put here is what gets paid out to the other agent. So just so you guys know that, make sure that this is accurate, or if you're going to offer a flat fee, then you're going to put that in here and remove this. Okay, it's one or the other. And so this right here, it says seller represents that he has not previously entered into a listing agreement with any other broker. So you want to make sure, have you spoken to anyone else and signed any other contracts? You need to know if there's any other valid contracts out there. That's important to know because obviously you need to give them, what happens in the event you sell the home while they have another, contract in place. That agent also can come and, claim a commission as well. Seller warrants that seller has no obligation to pay compensation to any other broker regarding the property. So again, you want to make sure that you do ask them these questions before you write NA, because you want to make sure that these do not apply, because you don't ever want them to say, oh, well, I thought you knew, or I didn't know, I had to tell you. So these are all important things that you want to ask them. So items excluded and included, another huge, huge, huge thing. This right here is super important. This is the time to ask your clients, is there anything in your home that is not included in the sale? Some people have, a backyard, those built-in barbecues, but they're not actually mounted. They can move and they'll crane them over. They want them. They want their spas. They want their Ring doorbells, their Nest, thermostats. They want, all those items. So the chandelier that, their late grandma gave them. So you always need to ask, is there any items excluded? And I'll tell you, one of the most common things they tell me is, you know what, I'm not sure. Can we get back to you? Yes, you can, but give them a time frame. Let them know that before you start showing the home, you need to let people know. So you can write in there excluded, seller to get back to me by, certain date. And then you can always add an addendum later. But just so you guys know, that's super important. I can't tell you how many times people fight over a Ring doorbell. They get really upset over those things because those are fixed to the property. So technically they do stay unless otherwise agreed. So then the next thing is additional items included. And that would be, let's say they have a swing set, that's not attached, but they're like, we're not taking the swing set. It's too much. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave, I don't know, TVs. We just don't want to take the TVs. We just rather leave them. I've had that happen. I'm going to leave my fridge. I'm going to leave my washer and dryer. I don't need it. So make sure you write those in there, and then make sure you let the seller know that once you include those will be, assumed part of the contract. And getting to be another important item is leased or not owned items. So Is there solar leased? If so, get that solar information ASAP. You want to get on that. You want to know what it takes to transfer. Is there a cost? You know, what the monthly, you know, fee is, what's owed, what's left, is it leased, is it being bought? You know, all those terms are important. So that way you don't waste any time when you're negotiating, you know, with your buyer. So just stress that to the seller, that in order for you to, you know, be sure to do your job effectively, you need that information. Alarm system as well. A lot of these alarm systems, people are in contracts, you know, for 2 to 5 years. So we need to know, are you in a contract? Can it be, are you taking it with you? Can it be transferred? All of those things are important. Propane tank is not very popular where we're at, but it's possible, can happen. Water softeners, I've seen those. So again, always, you can always ask, do you have anything leased or owned? And say them, you know, solar, an alarm, you know, water softener, you know, anything that they could, you know, possibly be leasing. And then lien items. Again, this is another thing. It's kind of the same thing, but you want to know if there's anything that they need to be concerned with. And then other, in case there's anything else. And we always come across all kinds of other stuff too. So, and then multiple listing service. So what is an MLS? Now, this hasn't been in our contract very long, but they added this portion because I think a lot of agents were, again, just trying to sell the home without even advertising, not even explaining to the consumer what an MLS was. Where does your listing go from, you know, upon once you take it? So this is the time for you to explain that to your seller, letting them know, you know, it's a database, you know, of properties that are for sale. And basically it's open to any licensed real estate agent who is part of that MLS. And you have the option to, you know, opt in or opt out. And these are the pros and cons. And that's basically what it is. And you need to let them know what, you know, MLS that you're part of. And also, you know, just to let them know if that's your primary MLS, where does it go to? Because let's just say, for instance, you're part of the high desert one, let's just say, and you're listing a property in LA. Well, it might not get all the exposure it needs to. So you might have to reciprocate with that local board in order to have it, you know, go out and syndicate with other places. So just be mindful of that if you're working out of the area. Number 6, benefits of using the MLS, impact of opting out of the MLS. So again, just letting, you know, the exposure to buyers through the MLS, impact of opting out. Like if you decide to exclude, which I don't know any seller who ever wants to exclude. I've never seen that. So, you know, that they're not going to get as much exposure, not as many buyers, not as many offers. So yeah, I don't think anyone would agree to that. So, and then not listing the property at all. You know, they have to initial that you went over that box with them. Public marketing of property. So clear cooperation policies. So MLSs require or do not require, but they do require that residential property with 1 or 4 units and vacant lot listings be submitted to the MLS within 1 business day of public marketing. So they do. Our MLS requires that. Public marketing with clear cooperation. So basically public marketing includes, but it's not limited to, so flyers, you know, even social media, websites, anything, any type of marketing. So that's why they came up with the coming soon status, because if someone sees your flyer and they go to look it up and it's not listed, you're in violation. So you need to make sure that the minute you're going to start marketing coming soon on your social media and stuff like that, then you are, you know, you have it in the MLS as a coming soon. So you got to be careful with that. There is a lot of people that will report you. So be careful. And coming soon status, impact on marketing. Seller is advised to discuss with broker the meaning of coming soon. So again, it's just letting them know what coming soon means, that you're preparing for this, you know, this home to be on the market. And then here is where you would mark seller does. So seller does agree. If they don't agree with you doing, you know, coming soon marketing, then you need to mark there. But like I said, I don't see anyone who wouldn't agree. Seller instructs broker. So seller instructs broker to market the property to the public and start marketing the beginning the date of. So here you're going to mark a certain date unless it's the date of this agreement, which it's the date of this agreement. Let's go back. is this date. So April 5th. So if they want you to start marketing it at before, then this is where you're going to input the date. Seller instructs broker not to market the property to the public. So again, that would be if they don't want you to market to the public, but I'm sure they do. And F, clear cooperation. Again, policy does not apply. So this is in the event that it does not apply, but like I said, for us, it does. MLS data on the internet. MLS rules allow MLS data to be made available by the MLS to additional internet sites. So this is why it goes to, like, you know, Realtor.com, Redfin, and all those other things. So you can opt out. So you can let your client know as well. We can choose to opt out. You know, seller can instruct the broker to have the MLS not display the property or the property address on the internet. So again, there's different forms that you can add if they don't want it displayed. But like I said, most sellers want as much exposure as possible. They're excited to see their home listed. So I haven't, like I said, personally came across that. So featured opt out. So again, these are just the options to opt out. You can opt out. Automated estimate of value. So the ability to create an automated estimate or value, or the link to another site containing such an estimate of value if the link is in immediate conjunction with the property display. So seller elects to opt out. So again, if the seller does not want an automated estimate of value, so what this would be in line with is kind of like how they have the Zestimates, or how they have Redfin or Trulia. They have estimates of what they believe it's worth. If you mark this and you complete this form and you send it to your local board, again, remember, they have to abide by whatever the seller wants. So just make sure if you ever have a seller concerned about that you complete all the forms right, because also the MLSs might have their own forms, which they want you to fill out as well. Seller representation. Seller represents that unless otherwise specified in writing, seller is aware of any notice of default recorded against the property. So basically, when I get to this part and I'm explaining it to my clients, I tell them this right here just that says that if you were in default, that there's other forms that I would have to complete with this. And are you guys current on your payments? And they're like, oh yeah, no, yeah, we're not behind at all. Okay, great. So this doesn't apply. So we'll move on. You know, because if they're in bankruptcy, or if they're in any type of litigation or anything like that, then that can affect your listing. So you want to make sure that you don't want to come at them too direct, but you want them to be able to answer that question for you. Brokers and sellers' duties. Broker agrees to exercise reasonable effort and due diligence to achieve the purpose of this agreement. So what is the purpose? Well, the purpose for the broker is for them to obviously get a buyer and close the deal. You know, that's the most important. And obviously the seller is going to allow us to show the property and be cooperative and do what they need to do, so that way we can, you know, do our part as well. So seller agrees to consider offers presented by broker and to act in good faith to accomplish the sale of the property. So making the property available for showing, like I said, we're going to go into that. And you know, referring to broker all inquiries of any interested parties in the property. Seller is responsible for determining at what price to list and sell the property for. So we're there to give them the information, but ultimately it's their decision as to what, you know, those numbers are. Investigation reports. So seller agrees, and this is when you're talking to them. We have 5 days of the beginning of this agreement. So that's the agreement date, remember, to pay for the pre-sale reports. So we always do a pest report, which is free, so they don't pay for it, but we do a pest report. We do ask them if they want to do a home inspection on their home, they can, just so they know what they're up against when buyers come. That's, again, an option. They don't have to. Some people opt, some people don't. Homeowner association documents, that one's huge. That can hold up your deal. So you want to make sure that they give you the name and number of their association company, so you can call and find out right away what happens. So because there's some that you go online and you request documents, there's others that have management companies that, you know, you call and request documents. So they're all very different. Their day time frames are different. But the whole goal is for you to get everything up front, so that way you guys are ready to go as soon as you get that offer accepted. So the time to have that discussion with them is during your listing, because you're setting everything up. You're setting the expectation up. You're not calling them once escrow opens and says, hey, guess what? Your homeowner association is going to be about $550. I need you to send a credit card to escrow. They're like, excuse me? So it's you know what? I'm just letting you know, every homeowner association is different. There's a possibility you'll have to pay an upfront fee. And once, I find out what that is, I'll be in touch with you. Okay, they're expecting you to let them know. So it's a difference. Okay, and then other. So if there's anything else, maybe they're on a septic, maybe they're on a well, maybe there's something other kind of inspection that needs to be done. Maybe they're having had an issue with, HVAC or plumbing. And so they out of the goodness of their hearts want to get those reports done ahead of time as well. So, I mean, there's different things, but just so you know that's there. Seller further agrees to indemnify, defend, and hold broker harmless for all claims, disputes, litigations, judgments, attorney fees, and costs arising from any incorrect or incomplete information provided by seller. So again, we're not responsible if the seller isn't honest with us. So all we can do is ask them to be, but this right here just says that we're not responsible for whatever comes out of their mouth. Okay. Deposit. Broker is authorized to accept and hold on seller's behalf any deposits. So I just let them know that we don't hold it. It goes directly to escrow, and they will never get the deposit, because that is something they ask. Do we hold on to the deposit? So that just lets them know, no, they don't. Seller representation. Broker shall represent seller in any resulting transaction except as specified in paragraph 3F. Which if you go back here, if there's anything here, if there's another representation here, that's where that would be here. Okay, but obviously that doesn't apply, so we're good there. Or you're going to make sure you're good there. Possible dual agency with buyer. Depending upon the circumstances, it may be necessary or appropriate for broker to act as an agent for both buyer and seller and buyer. So you need to explain to them, if I, Remax Champions, also, sells to another agent who's Remax Champions, that is a dual agency, because we work under the same umbrella of brokers. Our broker is the same. Jennifer Puglisi is the broker. So if, let's just say, Jamie and I are in a transaction, we are considered a dual agency, although there's different agents. So just keep that in mind. And I do let the sellers know that, not to think that a dual agency is only when I am representing both. So you need to make sure that they understand that that's a possibility, because sometimes they'll say, hey, if you're a dual agency, can we get a discount? Well, let's define dual agency real quick. Okay, so that way we understand. Confirmation. So you're going to confirm the agency relationships once you know who they are. So on the purchase agreement, if it's, Jamie and I, then we're going to, let them know who's representing who. Potentially competing sellers and buyers. And this here is why we sign that possible representation of more than one buyer, because this is just letting them know that we may obtain other listings or have other properties for sale in the same area, maybe that look the same and are similar. So this right here is, again, just letting them know that they've already consented to us, being able to work other properties in the same and similar aspects. Security, insurance, showings, audio and video. So we're not responsible for any loss or damage to any of their property. So always make sure that you're letting them know anything that's of value to put away. And even if it may not seem valuable, you just don't want to tempt anybody. Don't leave anything out. And that even goes for colognes, or perfumes, stuff that you may not think is a big deal. It's just better to put stuff away, have it nice and neat, tucked away, pack it, so it's not so easy to find. You just don't want someone walking around and, pickpocketing something really quick. Knock on wood, it's never happened, but it's always a first, as they say. So just make sure that they are definitely mindful. And I always advise them as well, getting into the photographs and internet advertising. We do definitely, do try to do the best we can with the marketing. That's a big part of getting their home sold for top dollar and the most exposure. But we do let them know that if there's anything on the walls that's personal, or like let's just say, for instance, some people have a safe or something in their room, or they have certain things of value, and they're worried about, you know, people now seeing what they have in their home. So you could either opt not to shoot that room, or you can let them know to maybe put everything that they don't want to be shown in the garage. And a lot of times I have sellers who will move stuff to storage, or they will actually put stuff in the garage and lock the garage and just put a note on the garage that it's not showable. So that's also acceptable, because a garage is a garage. So, and you can even ask them to take a picture before they put anything in there, so that way they can see, you know, how big the actual, you know, garage is, and if there's any storage, because that's pretty much what people want to know. So just make sure though, like, and I tell especially police officers, you know, people with certain religion, or, you know, they're heavy religious people, you know, to take, I mean, you don't want to tell them how to live their life while they're selling, but you don't want other people to target them either, unfortunately. So key safe and lockbox. So at this point is when you're going to ask your client, you know, how would you like your home shown? You know, do you want it by appointment only? You know, or do you want to be home? Do you not want to be home? Are you comfortable with us putting a key safe? You know, always use a Supra. Don't use a combination. You can't really, you know, monitor who's going in and out. They can go in and out anytime. The key can be taken. So you definitely want to invest in the electronic Supra boxes, because as agents, we are the only ones that have access to those. And you can also put in a CBS code, which is a call before show code. And if they don't send you the PED, and if they don't have an appointment, they can't get in. So it eliminates a lot of people who still try to show up without an appointment and tell your seller, Sonia gave me an appointment. And I tell my sellers, if they don't have that CBS code, they do not have an appointment. And I can't tell you how many times, time and time again, it happens. It's unfortunate, like I said, that agents don't want to follow the protocol. So definitely, you don't want to look bad. You know, you want to look good in front of your sellers. You want them to trust you. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, investing in your business and doing everything you need to do to do that. And so here, so this is if they don't authorize a lockbox, then you're going to do that. Okay, give me just a second, really quick. Really quick, Josie, you said, talk to me, because I see your thing. It says you can ask for it for longer. What did you mean by that? Or you can add it for longer?
It was answered earlier today. It was, yes, it was answered earlier.
Something else. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I answered that question. Okay,
thank you.
So you're welcome. So then here is where you're going to mark if they do not want a lockbox. Okay, if they don't want a lockbox, then definitely mark that. And again, equal housing opportunity. Remember, just let them know we cannot discriminate. If for whatever reason you don't want to sell to a certain person, just don't tell me why. Just tell me I don't accept that offer, and we're good. I don't need to know more. And then attorney fee, or actually, I'm sorry, I missed sign. So sign, seller does, and again, remember, mark there if the seller, always ask if they want a for sale sign. Don't just assume and, you know, put one out there, because some people get upset by it. So definitely want to make sure that they're okay with that sign being out there. And 19 additional terms. So if it was an REO, you would mark REO. If it's a short sale, you're going to add the short sale addendum. If it's a trust, you're going to add the trust advisory. And then here is sellers intends to include a contingency. So then you're going to also mark it here, and then remember, include the contingency. So I always have this in mind, showing instructions, because it just reminds me when I'm getting to this point of how I'm showing it. So if they tell me by appointment only, and I'm only available on, you know, because I work from home. Some people work from home, so they want to do 3 p.m., you know, to 7 p.m. weekdays, and then anytime on weekends. And I always ask them, who's the best number or email for me to contact? And they'll say, oh, contact, you know, me. So I'll say, okay, Mr. Seller, and what's your number? And then, so I'll put it here. I'll put the number there. So that way I always can, you know, refer back to it if I need to. So that helps there. And if there is an association, I'll put the name here. So I'll just put Glen Parks, let's just say, I don't know. And then, you know, whatever information, if they tell me it's $550, you know, $450 a month, or, what have you, just so that way I know. And then if there's not an association, then I'll just put NA. So that way I know I don't have to worry about it later. There is no association. Okay, so then moving on, management approval. So what this means here is, this is just saying that if you're an associate licensee, which we all are, because we are not the actual broker, once we enter an agreement, you're supposed to show it to your broker, and they have to approve it in writing within 5 days after its execution. That you're supposed to. So that's why they have SkySlope. You just upload it, keep it there, and we're good. But I don't think anyone ever really like stresses about that. But just so you know, in the event you want to get out of an agreement, you can always tell them, my manager did not approve of me working with you. So, because that happens too. You decide you don't want to take the listing and you don't want to offend them. So successors and assigns. So this agreement shall be binding upon seller and seller, successor, and assign. So it's binding the minute it's signed. It's binding. So here's a dispute resolution. So mediation. So seller and broker agree to mediate any dispute or claim arising. You have to try to dispute. So let me give you an example really quick, because I actually have a story for you guys. I had a seller who contacted me, asked me to place the home for sale. There's a long story ahead of that, but I'm just going to get to the meat and potatoes of it. And so I placed the home for sale. He was actually being sued by the owner, who wasn't the owner of record, but he had bought the home for someone who had proof that it was his house. It was just kind of a mess. But anyways, he calls me and asked me to put this home up for sale for him. I did. About 2 or 3 days into it, he calls me and he says, Sonia, if an attorney calls you and asks you what's going on with the sale, just tell them that you're advertising it and we don't have any offers. So if you get offers, don't present them, because I really don't want to sell this house. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, wait, I can't do that. I told him I can't do that because first of all, I can't lie to another attorney. So I didn't know what else he expected from me. I told him, if you want, I can sell it. Let's sell it. You can get top dollar for it. So he said, okay, well, if I don't get 500,000 for it, I don't want any other offer. Don't even send it to me. Well, we got like 3 offers. One was like 495, one was 500, and one was like 505. So we got what he said. Well, I kept trying to reach him and he would not respond to me. So now the attorney's calling me for the other person, the plaintiff, saying, Sonia, have you gotten any offers? And again, I wasn't going to lie, because maybe the attorney might have been sending the offer to see if I was honest. I don't know, and again, I just didn't want to be put in that position. So I told him, yes, I have 3 offers. He says, well, I need you to send those offers to me. And he had a court order. The court order was for them to put the home for sale. So I had to report to the judge and to this attorney. So I sent them everything. Well, like I said, the seller was MIA. Okay, he just like stopped returning calls. Don't know what happened to him. Well, I ended up finding out months later, because I kept trying to call his attorney, and his attorney kept telling me, he's going to sign it. He's going to sign it. He knows he has to sell. He's going to sign it. And then his attorney finally tells me, you know what, Sonia, he's not going to sell after all, but he's going to pay out that buyer, the legal owner, actually. He's going to pay him out his portion, and he's going to pay you your commission. So we're just not going to do a sale, but we're going to pay you guys the money we owe you. I said, okay, no problem. Well, months go by and I don't hear anything. So I called the attorney for the plaintiff, the one that was suing him, forcing him to sell. And I asked him if his case was closed. And he says, yes, he paid out my client $150,000. And I said, okay. So now that I know it closed, since it's closed, so what happened to Sonia? Okay, so I was like, okay, no big deal. Let me call the seller. Let me see what's going on. So I call him, and basically I find out that he lied, which I knew he was a liar from the beginning, but it ended up being a principle for me. So I said, you know what, because of the way he went about things, because of what he did, and like I said, there's a story ahead of that, so there's just a lot, but there was just, like I said, a lot of work that I had done. So I felt like, you know what, I deserve my commission. So I asked that attorney if he would represent me. So he did, and it ended up being about, I want to say close to $100,000 in attorney fees. Okay, that's what the attorney fees were adding up to. We had to go to arbitration because we had the arbitration. We tried to mediate first, that did not go well, so we had to go to an arbitrator. And I can tell you that being in arbitration is not fun. It's whatever that arbitrator decides, it is. You can't appeal it. You can't do anything. It's his word and that's it. So here I am showing up against this seller who basically came in with documentation that was lies. So I've never done a deposition and I had to do one. So it was pretty interesting going through the process. But after we presented everything, he tried to say that he did not hire me to sell his home. That was how he was trying to get out of paying the commission, that I forged his name on the contract. So of course that's not even true, but that was his claim. And so sitting there with the mediator, like I said, or the arbitrator, it is intimidating, because you don't know what's going to happen. They're asking you all these questions. Well, at the end, the arbitrator says, I think it's in your guys' best interest for you guys to settle. I think that's what it's in your best interest, but I'm going to let you guys be. So I talked to my attorney and he says, Sonia, I have to tell you this. I think you have a great case. I mean, obviously he wasn't able to prove what he's saying, but there's always a chance. And I just have to let you know that if you lose, you have to pay those $80,000 in attorney fees. And he said, so I just have to tell you that. And I said, you know what? No problem. I get it. It was a stressful 2 years, going through this, but I'm willing to see it out the whole way. I'm not settling. I'll wait for the arbitrator's, decision. So he's like, okay. So it probably took about 3 days, I want to say. And then my attorney calls me and just tells me, you know what, so I want to let you know, congratulations, you won. He said, you won. So he has to pay all those fees plus pay you 6% plus interest. So the guy paid it out like the next week. The guy had money and he paid out all that money. And I'm like, all he had to do was give me 3%. Honestly, he could even have said, Sonia, here's $5,000 for your time. Sorry about putting you in this position and everything else. But yet he tried to make me out to be this person I wasn't. So it was more the principle. So you just never know who you're getting into contract with. So the moral of my story is, make sure you talk, you communicate, and you're connecting with your seller more than anything, that you have an understanding that you guys, what's the purpose of this? Don't go in with bad intentions, or if you feel they're asking you to do something you shouldn't be doing, make sure you keep in mind, the consequences of doing those things, because it's not fun. And like I said, I would have never done it. I could have dropped it and said, forget it. But honestly, it was a principle. It is what it came down to. So if you ever, if that ever happens and you have to go to arbitration, like I said, nothing's inexpensive, it's expensive. And, God forbid you lose, now you have to pay all those fees. So you got to be careful and make sure you document everything and, you have that all together. So moving on, just thought I'd share that with you. But moving on, here, number 23 is this. And this is actually, like I said, I'll one day I'll tell the whole story because it's kind of hard to get into piece by piece. But this here is super important. This paragraph right here, 23, this entire agreement, all prior discussions, negotiations, agreements, anything do not matter if they're not written in this contract. Okay, so be careful with that. So don't tell a client, yeah, I'll sell your home for this, and then, or I'll do this and that, and then change it on them. Make sure you keep your word. But let's just say you do tell them over the phone, hey, I text them, I'll do it for 1%. And then you show up and you charge them 2% on the contract. Technically they signed the 2%, but you don't want them to hold you up for that 1% later on. It's not worth it. So just be careful. But any terms and anything that aren't agreed upon, have to be in here, or any counters or anything like that, or addendums. So ownership, title, and authority. seller warrants that, again, they're the owner of the property, they have the legal right to sell this home, and that there's no other persons, that have the authority over them. So, and then this right here, the representative capacity, this here is added to the contract in the event someone is signing for them. So if it's, someone just walked by, sorry, and my mind just went, doo. A power of attorney. So like someone has a power of attorney, or if it's in a trust or anything like that. So obviously they're going to have to provide the appropriate documentation to prove they have the legal right to sign for them. Okay, and then obviously you want your seller to execute immediately so you can get that fat void listed and sold. And here is the seller's advisory. And basically what this is just letting them know, selling property in California is a process that takes many steps. And that's why you hired me, because I'm here and to go with each and every one of those steps with you. So you just want to let them know that, that these disclosures that they're required to sign, why they're important, and why the timing is important. You should be signing your listing disclosures at the time of listing or within the first few days of listing. If you have a TC and you want them to just to send them over after, but don't wait for an offer, because the offers are actually coming rather quickly. And right now contingencies are being cut and everything's being cut. So you just want to make sure that you are proactive and you are setting yourself up for success and not, any headaches that are unnecessary. So the statutory duties for a seller for 1 to 4 residential units, which is most of the properties that we sell, is a TDS, transfer disclosure statement, natural hazard disclosure. And again, we're going to go over all of these different disclosures, in depth, one by one. The earthquake safety guide, which, like I mentioned to you guys before, there's links, they're free. You can, that your TCs send those to the buyers once they open escrow. And special tax disclosures, if any, death and other disclosures. So you see, this is what's funny. There was someone on Facebook, like in this group, I think it was like a city group. She's like, what's the legal requirement for a realtor to disclose, a death on a property? Because this realtor knew and they didn't tell me, type of thing. But if you notice, it tells you right here, California Civil Code section 1710.2 provides that you have no disclosure duty where the death has occurred more than 3 years prior to the occupant or to the date of the transferee occurs to the purchase. So basically 3 years or before that an occupant of the property was afflicted with, died from HIV. This law does not immunize an owner or his agent from making an intentional misrepresentation in response to the direct inquiry. So if you're asked, you have to say it. But if you're not asked, you don't have to say it. How confusing is that? Because you're asked on the SBQ. So that is a little confusing. I've always been told that if it's not someone who lived in the property, you don't have to disclose it. But you know what? Just for the sake of argument, disclose it. It's easier. Clients are excited right now. They don't really care. But you know what? The minute they're not excited anymore and there's one thing that you did wrong, guess what? You're paying for that one thing. So always, disclose ahead of time. It's better that you do. It's kind of like when you meet someone and you're okay with those bad habits, but then after a while you're not. It's like that. So make sure you get them when they're good. So contract terms and legal requirements. So a buyer may request as a part of the contract for sale of a property that you pay for repairs to the property and other items. Your decision on whether or not to comply with the buyer's request may affect your sale at a specified price. So right now, in the market that we're in, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I still, when I go and talk to my sellers, I don't tell them, you know what, we're in a market, you don't have to do nothing. You're gonna get this, you're gonna get that. You can basically sit back and everything's gonna happen around you. No, I don't set that up. I don't want them to believe that. I let them know that, you know what, if there's anything that is health or safety, we might have to address it. It's just going to be dependent upon what exactly it is if we don't know it yet. And so I do let them know, if your home doesn't appraise at this price, we may have to drop the price. I'm not telling them you're going to get more, don't worry about it, we'll make them pay more. I'm not that agent, because I don't like to, practice what I don't preach, or yeah, that, right? So you know what I mean. But what I'm saying is that it's important to don't be one way on one side if you wouldn't be that way on the other side, because I think that is what's destroying our business. We can't be like, oh, we're the strong arming person over here. Let's be real with everybody, and let's give everybody a great opportunity. I'm not saying that I'm not gonna, obviously try to get them the most money. Of course I am, but I don't want my buyer to be pushed out of the market because one seller got, all this money. So just be smart about it. And I think that's super important. And what we need to understand in our industry right now is educating our sellers and not over promising, because that's going to end up, you're going to end up looking bad by over promising. Because let's just say everything looks great, then you get to repairs, buyer does repairs, and now there's a roof that's needed. Sellers knew a roof was needed. A seller knows. But sellers thinking, I'll get away with this, not having to worry about it because this agent's telling me I don't have to lift a finger. So now appraiser calls out a roof. Now you need a roof certification. Now what? So if you go back to your seller and say, excuse me, we need a roof cert, and the buyer doesn't actually have all that money, so we actually need a new roof, they're going to be upset with you. Wait a minute. You said we didn't need that. So that's why I'm saying, just make sure, because a lot of times sellers aren't 100% honest with you, and you just want to let them know that if there's anything that comes out, everything is negotiable at that point. So there may be some negotiability that has to take place. That's all I'm saying. We don't know what it is. So just keep that in mind. Withholding of taxes, this is also another big thing. The seller has not been in a home for 2 years. They do have to pay taxes because it is a gain. So make sure they talk to their CPA. I can't tell you how many times we get sellers, who say, wait a minute, the agent never told me I had to wait 2 years. So just be mindful of that. I understand if, of course we want the sale, but we need to make sense too for the seller, because you don't want, again, them to come after you that you didn't let them know. So make sure that you be mindful of that. Again, here we are, prohibition against discrimination. So again, discriminatory conduct in a sale of real estate is against of individuals belonging to legally protected classes. It's a violation of law. So government required repairs, replacements, alterations. So this is kind of what we were talking about as far as repairs go. Definitely carbon monoxide, smoke detectors, and water heaters we already know that's definitely required. But there may be other things required depending upon the city and any ordinance to be in compliance. So lead-based paint renovation. So the new rule requires that contractors and maintenance professionals working in pre-1978 housing, childcare facilities, or schools with lead-based paint be certified. So they have to make sure that they are certified if the home was built before 1978 and still have a lead-based paint. So there's a whole information on that. Here we go again. Selling your property may have legal, tax, insurance, title, or other implications. You consult an appropriate professional for advice on these matters, because remember, we are not an attorney, a tax preparer or CPA, insurance, title, or anything like that. So don't come across as a professional. Just give them the information that it's important for them to get, how it may affect them if they are concerned about it. Marketing considerations, and this is right here where you want to let them know, they should considering doing what they need to do to get the home ready. And then post-sale protections, that's if they want to provide the seller with the home warranty, or the buyer, I'm sorry, with the home protection warranty plan. And then safety precautions. This here again is important for them to know that we're going to be advertising, we're going to be marketing, holding open houses, the for sale sign, and everything else that we're doing. So we want to make sure that they are on alert, that unfortunately there is not good, not everybody's good people. If you get someone knocking at your door and you just don't feel right about it, do not answer that door. So I always let them know that. Like if someone comes and says, hey, I saw your home for sale. Nope, don't do it. Especially we have gut feelings for a reason. So make sure you know. and you don't allow them in. Okay, and then here's other items in the event you want to put in any other items. Expenses, you're advertised that you, not the broker, are responsible for any fees or costs. So let's just say, for instance, they do some type of reports or whatever, they are responsible for that, not us. Okay, so just so you let them know. I know some other agents right in here, if the property does not sell, seller will pay for any marketing that I did up to, $700 or something. I've seen people put that in there too. So again, that's really up to you, depending upon how you feel about that seller. If you think that that's the kind of seller they are. And then California Consumer Privacy and Act Advisory. So this here was something that was added last year, and it's just letting them know that as a real estate broker, it's likely that, to submit personal information into the MLS in order to help find the buyer or the seller. But we do not, give we don't share any personal information with third parties. It's nothing personal. So, and then again, like we were saying, if they're asked to sign this SELM form, confirming their request to keep their listing off the MLS. So remember, if they don't want it on there, and because they just want to be very private about it, they have maybe a buyer that they're selling it to, so they don't want any information on there, then remember there's that form that's available. Okay. So that is your residential listing agreement in a nutshell. If any of you guys have any questions, let me know. We are going to get real quick into, I know it took a little bit longer than I thought, but we're going to go over the coronavirus addendum really quick, and then we'll get into the estimate. So here is the listing agreement coronavirus addendum. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you are attaching it to your listing agreements for now. Hoping we'll be out of this pandemic sooner than later. And so here is property showings. So seller does not agree to allow people to see the house, or does agree. So here is where, again, you're going to make sure that they are going to sign a PED upon entrance, and you're going to explain to your clients what they're signing when they're entering their property. And then this right here, prospective purchasers, again, they provide verification that they are financially able to purchase the property. So if they want a pre-approval, that's where they're going to mark there, and you're going to let them know in the MLS, we now require a pre-approval. And they represent that they have previously viewed the property online. So you want to make sure that they've done the video tour or saw the pictures, and they still want to see the property. Marketing activities, again, seller, if they don't agree to have you market it, that's where they'll mark. Otherwise, you're going to mark the things that they want you to do. So install signage, prepare an agent's visual inspection, prepare a virtual tour, or take photographs. So again, that's where you're going to do that. And then post acceptance and other necessary activities. Again, if they don't agree, you're going to mark here. If they do, this is what it is, not limited, including but not limited to some of these things that might be done during the transaction or after. Okay. And then seller prohibiting or limiting access. And this is just saying that, again, they're not supposed to limit our access, because obviously, we need inspectors and appraisers and everything else to go in there. So it's just got to make sure that it's for the purpose relating to the sale, for it to move along. So we just let them know that. Property showing and access rules. Again, there's different websites they can go to if they have questions about that. Showing requirements. And again, all you're doing is going over everything with them to make sure that they're okay. And then cleaning and sanitizing. Maybe it's something that they want to do, or maybe it's something that you want to do. That's something you have to come to an agreement with them if they're going to agree to pay for the necessary supplies of face covering, sanitizing products, blah, 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 or if you're going to do it for them. So this is just so that way everybody's on the same page. And then here is cleaning and sanitizing costs. Broker and agent are authorized to hire in seller's name a service to clean and disinfect the property as required. So that's if they allow you to do that for them. Broker marketing plan. If a broker's listing agreement included a marketing plan, that plan is modified to comfort the safety guidelines and best practices. So attached in this addendum. So again, you're going to explain in the event that maybe they have underlying conditions or there's an issue somewhere. So you need to be very specific if that's the thing. Temporary withdrawal of property from market. Broker agrees to pause marketing of the property, including changing to an appropriate status, and not conduct any showings while the addendum or amendment is in effect. The listing agreement shall remain in effect. So basically, this is in the event that, let's just say, someone gets exposed, or they're not feeling well, then you can add that on there. So put that on there. Scope of broker duty. Seller understands and agrees that broker will abide by the terms of this addendum and amendment and use broker's best effort to be in compliance. So again, make sure you are in compliance trying to decrease the risk for them. And here would be additional terms. And then this here is a seller property entry advisory and declaration, seller occupant. So this is where your seller is going to sign, because you want to make sure that, again, they got a copy of this. They understand, again, they need to certify as well that they're not, they're not sick. And then obviously the risk for exposure by allowing people in their home. So you want to make sure they sign this, and any other occupant who might live with them. So like, let's say they're not the owner and they're not selling it, but they're renting a room, or it's a niece, but she's 18 or older. So you definitely need to get them to sign that form as well. Okay, so there you go with that. That's pretty plain and simple to the point. So the estimated proceeds, I know some people go to escrow to get those done, but I'd like to do them right away, only because it just makes it easier. So you can get the information to your seller as soon as possible, and just let them know it's an estimate. Every transaction is different, so it could be off a little, here or there, but it's not going to be excessively off. It's pretty accurate. So this is what it looks like. So you're going to put Mr. Seller, their city, and then date, of course, and then here you can even write, the projected closing date. So right now everything's selling so fast, so that would be, we're here, so this would be 30 days. So let's just say it would close by the 7th. We'll just say that. And we're going to say that we're going to close it for 4/25. And depending upon, these are all estimates. Okay. So if 4/25, anything under 500, I typically use these as samples, these estimates. If the price is higher than 500, then I'll increase this by a few $100s, just to give or take, but it's just an estimate. So drawing and recording fee, I'll usually put $250 in there. And again, depending on what you decided to charge your client. So if you did 5%, then you can just put 5, and then you can just take this one off here, or you can put 2.5, whatever you decide to do. Remember the transfer tax rate. And if you're in a city that has a transfer tax, not really in the Inland Empire, we don't, but I know like Pomona does, and I know certain other cities do. More LA County have a city transfer tax as well. So if you want to know if yours does or not, talk to your escrow officer. They have the list and they can tell you. And then so obviously we have to do a natural hazard disclosure. This is for the termite inspection, which typically are free, like I said, but if you need a clearance, they're about $100. Home warranty program, and again, that admin fee, if that's something that you're going to charge. And then anything else, like we had talked about the HOA fee. So if there's a $750 HOA fee, then you would add that there. If you know that there's going to be repairs needed or anything like that, then you can add that here. Like, let's just say you already seen with your eyes, it's going to need something. So then you can put repairs there, and maybe tell your seller, you know what, let's just put in a $2,500 repair credit, just because we know there's going to potentially be repairs. Then you can even put that into your estimate as well. And then if you want to be really accurate, like with taxes, then you're just going to go into their current annual property tax. So you're going to get that in the realist tax. So let's say they pay $6,500 right now a year in taxes. So, and then if you're closing, let's just say we said we're closing when? In May. So you figure you have, they're going to owe, so it's June 30th. So you can be precise if you want, or you can just put in a 60-day worth of taxes that they're going to owe, just as an estimate. I mean, you can get precise if you want to really be precise. You can. It's not a problem. But again, it's just an estimate, and it's nice to have a pad in there and just let them know that that's estimated. Depending upon when you close, that can change, but it'll reflect the correct amount. But just again, you're just setting them up so they know that there may be taxes that have to be paid, and they might even get a credit. It happens too. So just depending upon where it is. And when they tell you how much they owe, let's just say they owe 125 on their first, and then they have, a $50,000 second. So then you can put that on here, and then this is basically what their net is. So what I usually tell them is, this is your net unless your payoffs are higher, you have liens on your property, or there's something else that comes up that maybe we don't know about right now. So as long as everything is, what we believe it to be, then this is more or less what you're looking at. But what you can do is I tell them, once I get an offer or get offers, I'm going to give you an estimated proceeds for every single offer. So you can see the breakdown and you can see where it is. And then once we open escrow, at that point is when I'll ask escrow to do an estimate for me. And so I can compare it to what I gave them. And usually it's so close. Like, it's so close. That's why I don't ever have a problem doing this on my own, because it's pretty accurate. But for those of you that are newer and maybe, a little bit, more like, fearful of it, you can always ask me for help, or like I said, you can talk to the escrow. I just know that, sometimes they're backed up, and that's not necessarily a priority, when they're working on fundings and closings and all that stuff. So I know sometimes we need it a little bit faster. So if you want more detail, or if you want a copy of it, just so you can kind of see, I'd be happy to provide that, for you guys as well. So that concludes our class. Does anybody